where the ASIO boss Mike Burgess has corrected what he said more than 3 weeks ago when he said that Hamas supporters would be allowed into Australia as long as their support of Hamas was only rhetorical. Well, he's clarified that in statements to the ABC by saying, if you think terrorism is okay, if you think the destruction of the State of Israel is okay, if you think Hamas and what they did on the 7th of October is okay, I can tell you that is not okay. And from an ASIO security assessment point of view, you will not pass muster. Now, it's very good that Mike Burgess has clarified that. That is the position that should have been obvious from the start. That is the position that the Prime Minister should have made clear as soon as this controversy arose more than 3 weeks ago. Instead, he's been like a rabbit in the spotlight. And today, he tried to make it all about party politics. Have a look.
The only person who's been critical of the ASIO Director General is Peter Dutton. What we've done is support our security agencies, applaud the work that they do.
Let me bring in the Shadow Immigration Minister Dan Tehan now, who joins us from Western Victoria. Good to speak to you, Dan. I'm confused here. I'm not confused, actually. I'm just flabbergasted that Albanese is trying to say the coalition was criticising Mike Burgess, because you were very clear in everything you said not to be critical of him. You were critical that the Prime Minister was not making it clear that Hamas supporters should be blocked from this country.
Couldn't agree more, Chris. And we still haven't heard from the Prime Minister directly, looking down the barrel of a camera, saying that, because he needs to. You'll remember in the Parliament, the last time we sat, the very two last questions that we asked him, Julie and Lisa asked him these questions, and he was asked twice because he didn't give an answer to the first one, and then he didn't give an answer ultimately to the second one. He was asked, should Hamas supporters be allowed into this country? And he couldn't give a direct answer. So what we still need to hear from the Prime Minister is for him to say that. He needs to back in Mike Burgess and say those words clearly so that the Australian people understand where the Prime Minister of this country stands. Because at the moment, as you've said, all we've heard is weasel words, ducking and weaving, and what amounts to nothing more than just a weak, tepid response on this issue from our Prime Minister, when you've got to remember what we're asking him about is support for a listed terrorist organisation.
Now, you're absolutely right, and this needs to be pursued with the Prime Minister. And this is more than just a matter of rhetoric, if you'll pardon the pun, because what the ASIO boss has outlined is confirmed that if someone comes to them, if someone is brought to their attention for a security assessment, then they would deem support for Hamas as a disqualification, as a reason to block them from entering Australia. But of course, not everybody is referred for a security check. So what you need to confirm from the Prime Minister is that on character grounds, on a visa application, that on character grounds, the government would always reject somebody if they offered any sort of support for any terrorist group.
Absolutely. That is what we need to hear from the Prime Minister. And we also need to hear from the Prime Minister that everyone who has come to this country since October 7, who has had a character assessment, that they have been asked that question, because we don't know exactly how those security checks have taken place. We don't know whether everyone has been referred. We now know that over half the people who have come here on tourist visas, we knew this would happen, have now claimed asylum. So the Prime Minister needs to front up and say how many of these people who have come to Australia, those who have claimed asylum, those who probably will down the track, how many of those have had that character assessment and how many of them were asked that specific question. And he should also tell us those who have responded that they do support Hamas, who have had their visas cancelled.
So no doubt you'll be pursuing this when Parliament resumes next week.
Absolutely. We want clear answers from the Prime Minister on this. It's absolutely unforgivable on national security grounds, on the grounds that is the number one priority of a government, keeping the Australian community safe, The Prime Minister will not give the Australian people a direct answer.
Yeah, there should be no ambiguity
to do that.
Thanks for joining us. Appreciate it. Dan Tehan there, live from Western Victoria, Hamilton, I think it is.